Boyz charge forward in large, tide-like mobs led by hulking Boss Nobs. Laying down hails of inaccurate but enthusiastic dakka, they dash towards the enemy before hurling themselves into close quarters combat, where their sheer muscles, ferocity, and vicious choppas help them make short work of the foe. Hello there and welcome to this video all about painting Orc Boyz. We'll be painting our model today in the colours of the Goff Clan, so let's waste no time and jump straight into it. The paints we're using are on screen now. These are the colours of the Goff's Orc Clan. They have intimidating black armour, several different coloured cloth, and of course green skin. And there's also a list of all the extra equipment like the brushes that we'll be using today. Before we get started, our mini first needs an undercoat. We're using Mechanica Standard Grey Spray. This works really nicely because our Orc boy has lots of different colours on him, some darker ones and some lighter ones, so this works great across the board. With that out of the way, let's start with our first base coat, which is going to be Orruk Flesh for all the skin. This is a pretty pale colour, so you will need to apply several thin layers for a nice solid coat. And feel free to switch this out for a different green if you're wanting to achieve a different skin tone. Up next is Zandri Dust for all the tan clothing and cloth across the model. Each orc is different, so where these parts are on your model may be different to mine. But with that said, there's not really a right or wrong answer as to what colour the different fabrics and leathers are across your Orc boys. So pick and choose the different areas you like. For me, it's just this clothing piece on top of the torso. With that done, we can move on now to all the trousers and leather straps, which we're base coating using Dryad Bark. Once again, feel free to base coat these areas using a different brown if you fancy it. And once you're happy with all the brown areas, we can move on to the black details. There's quite a few of these to pick out. On my mini, it's the boots, the armour panels, gloves, and weapon casing too. We've got quite a few base coats down on our model now, so just be as careful as you can when you're applying this. If you do make any mistakes, simply go back to your other base paints to neaten up any mishaps. For the eyes, let's quickly base coat them now using Mephiston Red. This can be a little fiddly, so just take your time. And the same is true with the teeth, which we're picking out now using Wraithbone. With that done, now we can move on to some metallics. For all the silver details across our Orc boy, let's base coat them using Leadbelcher. There's quite a few of these, and once again, each boy is a little different, so you may have more or less details to pick out on your model. For me, it's the shooter, slugger, chopper, buckles, and toe caps. And if you want to push these areas a little further, you can add some visual interest using Runelord Brass on certain bolts and accessories. And while we're at it, we can also pick out any bullets too. With that done, before we move on, let's quickly change our paint water so we don't get any pesky metallic flakes into our other paints. Moving on now to all the claws and talons. We're base coating all these areas using Caliban Green. Nice and easy. Let's just quickly use Corax White to pick out the skull detail on the slugger. Feel free to pick out some extra areas on your model if you fancy it. And with that done, we're ready for shading. Let's start by shading all the skin using Athonian Camoshade. Applying this as a recess shade will give you the cleanest results, but if this isn't your style, feel free to apply this all over instead if you'd like to. If you are recess shading like me, if you do make any mistakes, just wait until the shade has totally dried and then you can go back and fix them up with Orruk Flesh. For the areas around the mouth, nose and ears, we can shade these parts even further using Targor Rageshade. This is just going to add a slight purple hue, which is going to make these areas look more natural. For all the other areas on our Orc boy, we're shading them using Agrax Earthshade. It's up to you whether you do an all over shade or a recess shade this time around. Don't worry about shading all the black areas. They're already black in the recesses, so we can add some definition to those parts later with some highlights instead. Speaking of which, with that done, our mini is now fully base coated and shaded. Feel free to base your Orc boy and take him straight to the gaming table. Or stick around if you want to take him up a notch with some highlights. Let's start with highlighting the skin, and for it, we're using Nurgling Green. A little of this goes a long way. To make the eyes pop a little more, we can make them even brighter by adding Fire Dragon Bright into the centre of each eye. Nice and easy. There's loads of ways that you can go about highlighting black, but a nice one paint approach is to use Dawnstone. This will make all those black areas really stand out, which is important because we haven't shaded them. For all the metallic details, we can highlight them using Stormhost Silver. It's up to you whether you apply this as an edge highlight, a dry brush, or even use a mixture of both methods. And to highlight all the brown details across our Orc boy, we're using Baneblade Brown. You can stipple this on for a weathered and worn effect if you want to. And finally, to highlight the Zandri Dust sections, we can finish up with Screaming Skull. And as a final little touch, feel free to also add this as a tiny dot highlight to any other areas across the model like the claws. And there we are, all that's left now is to base your model to match the rest of your Orc army. I'm using Armageddon Dust texture paints, shading it with Seraphim Sepia, dry brushing it with Screaming Skull, and then painting the base rim with Steel Legion Drab. And there we are, this Orc boy is finished and ready to join the rest of the Green Tide on Armageddon. Well, that's all from me. Thanks for watching this video. In the meantime, if you are looking for more tutorials, go straight to warhammercommunity.com for the latest Warhammer news and content. Thanks again for watching, see you next time, bye bye!